Alright, so hi everyone. Grüß Gott, guten Tag, ich bin Moore. Or for those of you who doesn't speak German, hi, my name is Moore. So as you said, I'm working for Microsoft. I'm a senior software developer at Microsoft, and I'm working at an organization called Commercial Software Engineering. So software engineering, how many software engineers do we have here? Developers? Great. All right, so for those of you who are not familiar with software engineers, this is what you probably usually think about. What is commercial software engineering? So commercial software engineering is where us, engineers from Microsoft, from the R&D, work together with engineers from partners and startups and try to figure out together what gaps are there between the open source community and Microsoft technologies. And then we work together, sometimes days on end, hacking together to find those solutions and then publish them on GitHub. All right. So what do we have in the agenda? We have some pretty pictures. We're going to talk about bot framework, what exactly is bot framework and the background behind it, the process of building a new bot, some more pretty pictures, and then we're going to talk about out-of-the-box analytics and some further types of analytics and how we come to learn about them. All right, so we're going to talk about bots, not those kinds of bots, about bots based on Microsoft Bot Framework. All right, so who of you has worked with Microsoft Bot Framework one way or another? All right, so not all of you. So let's take a minute to understand what's Microsoft Bot Framework. So the Microsoft Bot Framework is a framework that enables you to write your code once in Node.js or in C# and then deploy it to a web service, a cloud, that's giving you a REST API, and then you can connect that API to a connector service, which I'm going to show in a bit, and then that service would be connected to any other channel that you might want to work with. So you can write your code once and then have your bot available on Slack, on Messenger, on Teams, on Skype, and any other sort of thing. All right, so how does it look like? So we have the logic, your bot logic. The entire conversation logic is something that is wrapped around with the bot builder SDK, something that manages dialogue, consistency, state, session variables, and stuff like that. And then you deploy it to a web service. There's also, there's been some talk on language understanding. So there's a natural language understanding that comes with the bot builder SDK called Lewis. You can use that, or you can use any of the other services available online. All right, so how does this look in a more broad schema? So you have your bot code deployed on a web service. That bot code talks to the bot connector service, and that one is connected and sending and receiving messages from the different channels. So you don't actually have to understand and write code and know how to write code for any of those channels. You can just write it once with Node.js, and then any new platform that's available for bot framework would automatically be supported, and you can decide where you want to publish your bots. All right, so this entire stack also comes with Microsoft Cognitive Services connection, so you can actually have emotion detection, face detection, all of those other things inside, so you get a lot of power. All right, so this is just to, for those of you who don't understand, but I think we all know more or less what's language understanding. Okay, so I had to pre-record all the demos like an hour before this session because I couldn't connect it. So I'm hoping that I'm gonna be able to display it in the right way. All right, so this is the Microsoft Bot Framework portal, and this is one of my bots. It's up inside TestBot. So just as a background, Application Insight is an append-only database that's optimized for telemetry. And we're using it automatically with the bot framework and with the solution that we had. So right here we see a simple bot that knows how to work with alarms, so I can create alarm, delete alarm, list alarms, and so on and so forth. It's just something for the sake of the demo. So one of the things that we're seeing here, once the demo loops back, is that I can talk to the bot with a web chat from the bot portal. And then I'm going to settings, and I'm entering some keys from the application insight service, and then I can see the analytics, like the out-of-the-box analytics. All right, so here we go to the analytics. We put in the key and whatnot. But what we'll soon see in the analytics tab is that we get some very, very basic analytics. So what channels are my users using? What's the most active channels? How many messages were sent? A general retention table at the top. And that's about it. I can't really know more about my data. So I started by saying that we sit together with partners, we work together, and once the bot framework got out, we started sitting with a lot of partners. So with big companies, enterprise companies, and startups, and one thing became very clear very quickly, was that people who wanted to publish their bots to production felt like they were going to drive blind because they had no idea how users are using their bots and if their bots are actually usable. So are people angry? Are people happy, sad? Are they using it the way I think they're using it? And that's a bit frustrating and weird, and a lot of the companies either chose outside solution which give them a very small stack, or develop their own sort of analytics. And all right, so that got us into a place where we had to figure out what exactly this process of building a bot, what our analytics in this world look like, and we started talking to customers and trying to understand, all right, so once you got your bot online, what's your idea of good analytics? Like, what would you think be interesting to see for your bot? How do you want to interact with the data? So we collected all of those things. And to understand them, let's go over very quickly on how a new bot is born. So you develop your logic, register the bot, deploy it online. You start collecting analytics. Let's say that you know what kind of analytics you want, although you usually don't. The big problem with the bots, is that most of the companies who want a bot don't really know what is a successful bot, just like you talked about yesterday. So they don't really know what sort of analytics to expect. They don't know what sort of data they need to send to get that data back, and we wanted to minimize that frustration. All right, so what we got once we deployed the bot to the bot framework, we got a lot of data, a lot of analytics, a lot of work we need to do to understand what's the next version going to be, and trying to wedge into that the understanding of what I'm expecting from my analytics is something that can be frustrating, confusing, and very unclear. Also, I don't know if I'm doing this correctly. And all right, so I talked about application insights. So what we understood, So what we understood very quickly was that we wanted to help partners collaborate in an open source manner to share how they see analytics, share how they see their insights, and enable to share together their understanding in this world, and also enable them to customize their ideas and further in a manner that's appropriate to their bots. All right, so what do we have? What is possible with data on bots? So we have intent metrics. So intent, just for clarification, if my bot create alarms, then I can say create a new alarm, or remind me in 5 minutes, or can you add a new reminder in, yada, 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 and it's all translated into alarm.set, like a basic intent that a computer can understand, and I can then take and move forward with. Conversion rate, which is also something that we've been talking about in this event. So conversion in the world of bots is something that can be really unclear and very changing between different bots. So on a website that would sell you travel packages, it's really clear what's a conversion. A conversion is a customer that comes in and then leaves the website after buying a package. And I would expect a conversion rate of such a bot to be somewhere between 10 and 20%, which is good. But for bots, this is less clear. So if this is what I want my bot to do, this 10 to 20 conversion rate is good. But if my bot is answering FAQ questions, then what's a conversion? How do I know that the bot is successful, or that the user was converted or ended with a positive attitude? All right. So another thing is sentiment analysis. When you're on a website, you can't really know if a user is frustrated unless you really see their face. But when you're chatting with the user and the user enters text or speak with his voice, then the ability to understand if that text is frustrated or positive or neutral is something that can get a whole new light in you trying to understand how your bots interact with your users. All right, and last but not least is when we see analytics, I see my most common intent, I see retentions, I see usage around channels. But what's interesting with analytics is actually trying to understand how does the data look at the end of the tunnel. So my ability as a product manager to drill down into the analytics and look at a conversation, like a simple conversation between the user and the bot of a back and forth communication, is something that a lot of our customers really wanted to have. And we set out to try to understand how to do that. All right, so the project that we ended up building is an open source, MIT licensed, GitHub offered repository that any of you can fork, connect, and run. It's called Ibex. Ibex, for those of you who don't know, is this animal, and it's native to Israel, where our team came from, although the team is global. And with Ibex Dashboard, we try to sort of take all of that insight, take all of those questions and requirements, and build something that enables users not only to do those things, but actually share those scenarios between themselves. So a basic bot has those basic scenarios, but we can have different bots with different scenarios where we want to share analytics. So one type of bot, again, as I said, is Q&A bot or FAQ bot. And I would want to have basic sort of requirements for analytics with that sort of bot. Or if I have a handoff to human, then I want to know analytics like how long did users needed to wait before a human agent answered back, how many people wanted to get a human agent, and those things are things that are repeating themselves when you're working on handoff to human. All right, so let's see a demo of this project. So we got here a basic dashboard where I can see channel usage. I'm switching to a 3 months view, and then all the data is loaded for 3 months. I can see some errors, sentiments, users, intents, and so on. But the interesting thing is that all of those little information icons are things that I can press and drill down. I'm sorry, I'm talking slower than the recording. But if you click on errors, then you can actually go into the error stack and drill down into the specific error and try to see where this data came from. Or when I'm clicking on sentiment or users, then I can see either a more detailed dashboard on user retention. On sentiments, I can see conversations with positive retention or negative retention, sentiment, positive and negative sentiment, and so on and so forth. Let's see another demo. Right, so the second demo is me looking at an intent graph, and I can see that alarm name and the date that the user asked to build this alarm. So the alarm names that we saw are just the common alarm names that people used, and the date. So most users said, I want to create an alarm in 5 seconds. And this is something that kept recurring. All right, and another interesting two things is that I can see the top utterances. So this is something really interesting because I want to see how users activated this intent. Or if I click on conversations, I can see currently all the active conversations. It's running a bit quickly, but I can see all the active conversations. And clicking on a specific conversation, I can see the text being sent between the user and the bot, and the dashboard would even pinpoint the exact locations in the conversations where alarm.set was called. Again, I'm sorry for this being really quickly, but it's been done on the last hour. All right. So another thing that's really interesting in this little demo is the non-intent. So I have my idea of what my bot is supposed to support. It's supposed to support alarm.set. It's supposed to support deleting alarms and so on. But some users can say things to the bot that I don't know how to handle. And I want the ability to know and discover what those little gaps are, and then give them the proper answer. So in this example, I'm clicking on none. I'm seeing that the top utterances for none are high. So with high, I think that we have something like 70 conversations that had high in them. No, in this case, it's 7. And clicking on a conversation and discovering that the user said hi, and the answer back was, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you wanted, is a really bad experience for a user. And I can see it really quickly through a dashboard with a drill down, and then go back to the intent module and recalibrate the results and enable to add like a welcome message or something that's a little more personalized, which I haven't thought about, or any other sample. All right. So this entire dashboard is, like I said, it's a template. So we've started collecting a lot of templates for bots and for other applications as well, and enable customers to do pull requests into the repository and give back their own templates, or even expand those templates. And what we're seeing here is that I'm choosing to create a new dashboard from a custom template and bot analytics template, and I get into a screen that requires one thing from me, which is to supply back a connection string or connection variables, and then it connects to my own schema and shows you all the analytics that you've seen so far. And if you have some gaps in understanding how to do that, there's a small guide on the side that can help you do a step-by-step onboarding to the experience. So that's the one over here. All right, so other experience that I've also mentioned that we have developed templates for are handoff to human. This is something that we set together with customers, and we had some people actually developing this automated plugin that you can have into your bot framework-based bot, which would give you this entire experience of handoff to human with management system, and they wanted to have their own dashboard connected to this experience so that they can show users how they use. So things like average time for a user to receive his answer from a human agent, how many people are waiting right now, and also in this you have a drill down capability where you see the messages being sent between the user and the bot. And the nice thing here is that we connected all of those messages with sentiment analysis so that you can actually see the specific messages which would jump out. In this case, it's not with color, but it would jump out with red color for negative or green color for positive, and get a really quick understanding from this dashboard of where I'm standing with this current user, Joe, that I'm talking to. And this is another dashboard, a Q&A dashboard, where I see the questions people are most prone to ask, how they're being used through times. Those are a bit less mature, but those are templates that have been PR'd via customers back into the repository. All right, so looking forward, not on global warming, but I really, really like this image. I have no idea why. So some of the ideas we're working with on bot analytics and analytics in general. So after investigating a bit, we saw that the experiences that people are expecting from dashboards are a bit complicated and a bit unclear, because today, in order to understand and access your analytics, you would probably need a developer, you would need really big understanding of how your data works. And we're trying, so the things that I'm going to show are a bit like investigations that we're doing. We're trying to do ad hoc features, and those are our tries with those sort of new ideas. So one of the things we're trying to work with, has any of you worked with Spark notebooks? Python notebooks? All right, no one. Okay, we have a few people. Good. All right, so we try to take an idea from someplace completely unrelated to bots and dashboarding and analytics, but something that we thought might be creative enough to enable playing with a dashboarding and experience and analytics experience in something that feels a bit more natural, and I'm going to show it in a bit. Pinning. So we want to try and take the idea that you can query your analytics wherever you are, in whatever application you are. It might be a database application, it might be a service application. You get the data back, you visualize it, and then we want to enable people to take whatever they had and then pin it into a dashboard or into a drill down of the dashboard, and that would give them a better experience of how to build those analytics. And I'm sure that any of you who's creating a bot and has an idea of how to enhance their understanding of analytics can understand that this ability to go into the analytics and get data and then build a dashboard is something that can get a bit complicated, like even by understanding those analytics. All right, and the last one is templating, which I've already shown you. All right, so this is the demo. In this demo, we're showing that we can click on any of those elements and get back the exact query that we run against application insights, and exactly what results I got back from my database. So it gives me very quick access into understanding how that specific analytics was built, and I can copy that query and paste it into this notebook, which you're seeing here. So in this notebook, we're running a query, and then we can decide how we want to show that query. And so in this case, we're choosing a timeline. Now we need to remember everything that's running really quickly now. And then you can pin that specific result into the dashboard you've been working on, and jump to the dashboard and see that result at the bottom. So this is what we're trying to do. Another thing that's interesting to see here is that I can access like the entire code of this dashboard and see in a JSON state how it's being built. So this is not something that I would expect anyone to do, but it gives me and my developers very big flexibility on how I can build and interact with the dashboard. So everything here, from the queries to the visualizations to the drill down to the filters, everything is defined in this one big JSON. It's all documented on the GitHub repository so that if you want to actually understand it, you can go there. But we're building experiences that are on top of this schema so that you don't actually have to understand this really massive JSON. That was just what you saw. All right, so those are all the resources that we've been using. You can see the project that we have on GitHub. If you want to see a little more about the project, you can go to aka.ms/ibex. There's a full article about the process that we had building this, the connection to GitHub, the architecture, and so on and so forth. And there's a few other links if you want to try out those either bot framework, the Node.js bot, and how to use application insights on Azure. All right, so any questions? I'm guessing that Maggie is going to come up here now. And hi, Maggie.
Big round of applause for more, please.
Thank you.
Thanks very, very much. Do we have any pressing questions from the audience? Yes, we already have a pressing question. There we go. Before I, steal your question from you.
Hello. I just have a question around the sentiment analysis. Is that something that happens live? And if it is, can we use that to shape the conversation? So if user feels angry or the sentiment is negative, we give a different answer than if they're happy, for example.
All right. So there's two answers in that. There's our chair is coming. There's two answers. So one, the sentiment analysis is being activated on the bot itself that sends the messages as they're happening. So if I receive a message from the user, I would do sentiment analysis on that message, if it's 3 letters or more words, and send the result back to the analytics database. Then on the dashboard side, we're showing that information, but we do have the ability, like in handoff to human, to show what conversations are right now in high jeopardy or have really low sentiment. So I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions? Yes, in the black.
Hi there. Great talk.
Thank you.
So this isn't specifically analytics related, but kind of more about bot framework. So several of the social messaging platforms are sort of standardizing around or several common affordances, galleries, quick replies, things like that. Microsoft itself has the adaptive cards standard. So in some ways it's like the early web, where there's lots of different versions of doing the same thing. Do you see eventually, potentially, there being standards bodies for messaging platforms and sort of coalescing around actual standards, or will it kind of remain unique to each individual platform?
So I really don't know, because we're currently at a really early age at this thing called chatbots. And what I know that I found really cool with the bot framework is that we're talking to customers who build their first version of the bot. So we were working with one customer called Sage from the UK, and they have their first version of the bot built with specific versions for each of the channels they were using. So they were keeping three projects, one for each of the bots. And once they were able to transfer all of that logic into the bot framework, they only had to support one code base, which was connected to a lot more channels. So I don't know if that answered, but I don't know what's the future going to be like.
Yes, if we could only know. Is there any other question? I had one question about the open source solutions that Microsoft offers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How can developers use that for their various projects?
All right. So it's really interesting what Microsoft been doing on the last years with open source solutions, because Microsoft doesn't have a history of being open source. And in the last years, we've been seeing a really big shift from that idea. So I personally had something like 15, 16 years of experience with Microsoft technologies as a developer. And inside Microsoft, I did the shift from Microsoft stack into open source stack like GitHub, Node.js, React, and so on. So from inside the company, you could see this shift happening. And it's interesting because the entire approach of Microsoft wasn't trying to invent a lot of new tools, but actually using open source solutions and doing pull requests to existing projects to enable better connection support to existing projects, and creating their own project as open source so that anybody can do pull requests, understand their code better, and interact with it in different ways, just like that project.
Awesome, fantastic. If there are no more questions, I'm going to let Moore go, but he will be around. So if you do have questions for him, go find him outside afterwards at the networking session, where I'm sure he'll have a cold something in his hand. In the meantime, thank you very much. Moore, a big round of applause for Moore, please.
Thank you very much.